Guys, welcome. I'm Eric Hahn, I'm the Dean of Students. Before I bring up our esteemed speaker tonight, esteemed guest, I was thinking about, okay, if you were going to make a career working in comedy and feature films, who should you have worked with over the past 30 years? So I was thinking, all right, well, I guess Will Ferrell of Daddy's Home. Steve Martin, Bringing Down the House. We've got Mike Myers, So I Married an Axe Murderer. Eddie Murphy, Nutty Professor. Web Therapy with Lisa Kudrow. Wedding Crashers with a never funnier Vince Vaughn or Owen Wilson. Basically, everyone of significance in comedy in feature films for the past 30 years seems to have gone in front of our speaker's lens at some point. And as he said earlier tonight before our movie began, filming comedy isn't as simple as if you brighten it, it's funny. And as the movie showed tonight, if you're going to do something that has action and it has genre and it has murder and mayhem, well, you better shoot it for real, because otherwise the comedy won't be anywhere near as funny. Part of what made this thing really pop off the screen was that when there's a chase scene or when there's a murder, you actually believe it. It also helps, though, to know when you've got three incredibly funny guys in front of the screen, make sure we could see them too. There's a lot of war stories I'm sure he could tell about his incredibly long and illustrious career. So instead of looking at me, let's look at our speaker tonight, Julio Macat, along with Mike Williamson, our Associate Chair of the Cinematography Department. Come on up. Special
Thank
chair.
you, thank you, thank you.
An inside or outside?
I'll go outside.
Inside.
This is so professional, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I was able to point out a couple of things before the movie, so you know it can maybe spark some conversation. But it was, I wondered if anybody noticed those things I was talking about at the beginning, the difference at the beginning of the movie, and then the pacing and the rhythm of that, the sequence. I thought that was something that we did really well with this movie, is to keep it moving, to keep it entertaining.
What I like too is like you would take things that were sort of the expected part of like a montage of like planning the heist, and then all of a sudden it would like focus on the fact that they were getting too excited with like slapping fives and stuff, and that they start arguing with each other about that. So I mean, for yourself as a cinematographer, how do you marry those two things? Something that's playing it straight, but obviously not straight at the same time.
Well, it was, as always, when you read a scene and there are certain gags, certain jokes that you can't leave the scene without making sure that you get those beats. And when you have those three guys in a frame, I don't know if you noticed, but we were shooting with a lot of two cameras a lot, because one of the things when you're being kind of raw and those three guys riff together so well and overlap each other so well that it helps editorially a lot to have a cross angle at the same time as a three shot, so that you can tighten up timing between them, and then they overlap each other's dialogue a lot. So it was really helpful to have that second angle at the same time. So you prepare yourself in a way as if it was a documentary. You see the scene as a little event, and then you try to figure out if this was a documentary, and if it's only going to happen once, how would I cover it? And you kind of prepare yourself for that, to be open to those great accidents that are going to happen when you have really good people with funny dialogue, and they're going to riff and make it even funnier and have surprises that you want to be able to document.
Yeah, I know Thelma Schoonmaker was talking about when she cut Raging Bull. She said her documentary background was humongous because you're dealing with De Niro and Pesci really just at the top of their game, and how like Scorsese would enable them to sort of breathe and find these moments, and that can be murder on an editor. If improv is done like take after take, you guys, have you ever tried to cut improv? It could be terrifying because nothing will match. So you used multicam for a lot of this. It sounds like
two cameras all the time. I started, learning that what you sacrifice by having two angles, lighting-wise, because you're not controlling every shot. with the lighting, to where the lighting is in the right angle. I discovered early working with kids that having a cross angle or having a single at the same time is just the what you gain by it is so much more, than the compromise lighting wise. And if you're clever, you can still always have that second camera be on the right side of the frame. When it gets tricky is when they ask you, and directors will ask you, to cover a master of a scene head on, like the three of us head on, and then, in like a television show, cross angle this way and cross angle that way. So you end up having forcefully to light a little fuller, because what's good for this camera is not good for this camera, and vice versa. So you end up working in the classic 3 points of light, 2 edges and a little front fill light, which is the common denominator of the best lighting for the compromise.
We talked a little bit, about talking with the director and planning. First, for a movie like this, do you know going into it that you have to pitch yourself a certain way in their interview? I don't know if you'd worked with this director before.
I hadn't worked with this director before, and then we ended up doing another film after because he liked my approach of kind of he's a writer, he's a director who's co-wrote the script. He has a writing partner, and so he thinks a lot like a writer. And I like to think of myself as photographing like a writer. Whenever I read a scene, I try to figure out the 3 points that are important in the scene, or if it's in a comedy, to see where the joke is, what the funny situation is. And then, like a writer, I try to, make sure that photographically what the writer's trying to say and what's written actually comes off. It sounds silly, but you'd be amazed at how reading a script, especially if it's a pretty good script, it tells you everything right there that you're supposed to do. And when you're starting out, it's always difficult to figure out, well, what should the coverage be of the scene? What is the important things that I should be filming? What are my shots? You're trying to come up with a shot list. And I've done now 16 movies with first-time directors. And oftentimes, I've had it a couple of times where they come in with all these shots in their minds about the scene, and I always say yes. Yeah, that sounds good. They give you a list. I've got 22 shots that I want to do for this scene. And, we're going to do a wide master here and a wide master there and coverage here and coverage there and insert, tight. And I say yes to everything. And then, and he should have a plan. The director should have a plan. But then we run the scene with the actors one time. And that's where, you're kind of sitting back to see, okay, now how is the scene really going to play? It was written one way, and these are all the beats that the writers was trying to get. But now that we rehearse it one time, if it's a comedy, what's funny about the scene? Who's the funniest person here that, we want to make sure we get the joke? And what are the funny angles, if any, or what's funny about the situation? And it actually takes you to the shots that you have to photograph. And my most common advice to people starting out photographically is, or a new director who comes in with many shots, I say, okay, I love it, and yeah, we're going to do all this. But I ask him if you had to shoot the scene with only one shot, one angle, one camera, where would the camera be? And they look at me like I'm insane. And then they go, well, and it's so weird because there's only one place where you can put the camera, if you had to tell the story in one shot, one angle. And then we go there and we look through the viewfinder and we say, what do you think? I like this angle. Do you like this angle? Yeah, this looks good. And we look at it And then we go, well, why don't we make our master shot from here? So that's your point of departure. And then, you see how the scene blocks out and you see how it goes. You shoot your master, and then it's like the master is telling you what the coverage is going to be after that. Because you know that if you're covering dialogue, you should pretty much have a close-up on everybody talking if you want to cover your ass in editing and you want to be able to move things around. So you've done your wide shot, you've done your master, and then you follow the dialogue and you have a close-up on everybody's dialogue. And I guarantee you that with that and that alone, you could cut a scene together and not be missing anything. Of course, after that, that's your point of departure. Then from there, you get more sophisticated. And then maybe you make your master be moving. And maybe you're you're taking the attention with the camera. You're going from this part in the master, you push into someone closer within the master, and then you widen it out again. And then it becomes to be layers of being more professional, but you always had that point of departure of the one shot that tells a story. And if you go in that direction, I can guarantee you never go wrong.
Well, and also as a DPO, at the beginning, I was going down a list of actors, comedic actors you've filmed, and Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura, that was one of yours, right?
Yeah, that was a first-time director.
Yeah, and then Eddie Murphy and Nutty Professor.
Yeah.
I mentioned Steve Martin before, John Candy.
Yeah, John Candy.
So for yourself then as a DP, what's it like then when you're working with actors who are really able to inhabit a space? Like, how do you find that balance of making sure you're sort of getting, the sort of action, but also making sure like the sort of grace of poetry isn't lost?
It helps me a lot to know what's important to them in the scene. And somebody like Melissa McCarthy, for example, on this movie we did, The Boss, recently.
And did she direct that too?
Her husband, Ben.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they work together a lot. Melissa, sort of co-directs from the back seats. Isn't that a nice way of saying it?
Incredibly genteel.
I love them both. Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone are fantastic, and I'm so proud of the movie. It's called The Boss. It comes out in April, and it's going to be really good.
So what, she gets like a Girl Scout troop, and
She created this character in the comedy troupe. She was part of that comedy.
Groundlings or
Groundlings, yeah. And one of the routines, one of the things that she did was this character named Michelle Darnell, who's really politically incorrect. She's like a female Trump. And she's
with better hair.
Oh yeah, better hair. But she's like a Martha Stewart. She sells herself. She's one of the richest women in America. She buys and sells, and she doesn't care who she has to screw over to get rich and stuff. And it's a really funny character who, in our story, she has everything. She's one of the richest women, but she makes bad trades and then goes to jail, kind of like a Martha Stewart, and then loses everything. So she has to get back to on top again. And we did a lot of really cool things. Yeah, she the way she gets back is she organizes a Girl Scout troop, and they sell brownies instead of cookies. And she becomes the brownie magnate, and they sell like at dispensaries and
Right.
cool place. So it's going to be really fun. And Melissa is just, I think, one of the top female comedians that we have. And I think as a cinematographer, if you go in with an understanding of what the actors are trying to do, and if they see that you're with them and you're kind of supporting what they're trying to do. And the first thing that will concern a comedic actor is that they don't. Mark Wahlberg actually really was thankful that I worked really quickly and that the lighting setups would only take about a half hour. And he was really appreciative that we could keep the flow going, and he didn't have to go back to his trailer for a long time, because there's a whole momentum thing as an actor as well, that you don't want to get going and then go back and wait for an hour and then come back again and then wait. You know, the start and stop and start and stop, it kind of kills comedic performance. So that was one of the things he was concerned about, and I actually had the sense about it, and I had heard from someone that he had had some issues before with other DPs. So I made an extra point on the first couple of setups we did to be super fast, really ready, and not make him wait at all. He didn't even have time to go back to his trailer and come back. And he just loved it because he's there to act and play. So that was just a small example of something that I knew was important to him that I was going to respect. And then you gain trust and you gain respect, and they know that everybody's there with a common cause. You know, you want to ideally be in a group where everybody's trying to push in the same direction and have the same goal at every level. You know, when you guys are doing your projects, you want to try to have people who are going to support your vision. You're either going to work with a director who hired you because they trust you. So, you know, there's that camaraderie and trust between each other. And you want to hopefully surround yourself with other people who you don't have to deal with personalities on the day of the shoot. You want to get all your ducks in a row so the day that you go shoot, you know, it's not about egos, it's not about personalities. Everybody's doing what they want to be doing, you know, and then you're just there to try to do the very best job you can. And it's amazing because when you put that out there and you have a somewhat little humility about it, you get much more respect than if you were, you know, trying to show off all the big movies that I've been in. I want respect. That doesn't work because every project is different, whether it's a big movie in a studio or whether it's a small film that you're doing. If you treat people that you're working with respect, and if you're a hard worker and you're working your buns off, people are going to see that and they're going to respect it, and it's going to inspire other people around you to do the same thing. If you guys walk away with nothing else tonight, just know that this part of the secret to my success has been that I've always tried to treat my crew and the people that I work with respect, and I've tried to realize that even though my job is this little area here, and it's the photography of the film, I try to look at the overall picture and how everybody is trying to achieve their goal and trying to get to go where their imagination, you know, is imagining the movie to go. So the more aware that you can be of that, and the more respectful you can be with people, and if you show eagerness and positive energy and willingness to push the common goal forward, it will be the quality more than any other quality that gets you hired in our industry.
I had a question. You know, we talk about being flexible with the actors and waiting to sort of, we show up on the day, we have an idea of the scene, but then we see the rehearsal and it kind of may change this or that. What do you do to be prepared kind of prior to that moment so that if something changes in the blocking, you can be ready for it? Is there anything you do or?
Yeah, you always think about it, and then you know, if you've blocked something with these edges of frame in mind, you know, you always have a little bit of a backup and a couple of extra lights in case that the shot gets bigger. And at that point, it's also good to say to the director and the actors, you know, we changed the blocking a little bit, so I'm sorry, but it's going to take a little bit more time.
Right.
I hope you don't mind. See, that's just a sign of being respectful that, you know, they change something, and the more that you can adapt that way in comedy, you do. You try, you know, how many times have I heard a director say, don't worry about here, we're never going to shoot in that corner. And then, sure enough, you know, the scene blocks out this way, and the actor says, but I really should go to that corner. So you try to cover your ass a little bit with that, But people, you'd be amazed. People are really reasonable, and if you have a humility about you, and if you say, well, you know, the right way to do this is I need an extra few minutes to light that corner because we didn't talk about it. You know, that is much more effective than saying, well, you know, we never talked about doing this. You know, it's like, you told me we were going to shoot it this way. You know, and in comedy especially, you have to be accommodating. You have to be lucid. On Wedding Crashers was a perfect example where, with Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn especially, they just love to riff and they just love to freewheel. You know, a lot of times, like that scene, if you've seen the movie, the scene where they're on the stairs and, you know, and he's trying to find out what the breasts were like, you know, and he's like, come on, you know, tell me, were they like this? You know, you motorboating son of a bitch, you know, that's tough when he, that was all improvised, and, you know, we weren't supposed to shoot on the stairs, but then all of a sudden, you know, we got to shoot on the stairs, so it's like, oh, okay, ooh. Okay, yeah, let's get the smallest camera we have, let's put it here on a tripod on the stairs, terrible angle, we shoot one way, and then the reverse of it, you know, we have nowhere to go, you know,
Right.
but then you kind of figure it out, you adjust it, you blend it, and then it turns out to be one of the funniest scenes in the movie, you know, and that's just improvising and going with the flow. Most of the great work you guys are going to do is going to be happy accidents that happen to you while maybe everybody else is thinking that the scene's going to be shot like that, and then all of a sudden you're going to go, oh, but wait, there's a window over there, and it's really pretty, and all we have to do, it doesn't cost anything, and this is where the DP goes to the director and says, look, can I just do one quick little shot? It's not going to take any time, but, you know, you love this cut. It's just a little piece over there, and then all of a sudden, you know, you put the actor there, they go by the window, it's gorgeous, the director sees it, and they go, wait, let's do this scene over again. Let's bring the other actor, put him by the window. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. And it's just from being open to happy accidents that happen. And that will be some of the best photography that you're going to come up with, are those things that you've prepared yourself, you open your eyes, and you're waiting for great stuff to happen. Oftentimes, I'm telling you, it's like the camera's pointing this way, and all you have to do is put the camera here, and it's twice as good because of the depth, because things are separating better, you know. So the worst thing to do is to fix yourself in an idea that's 100% that's exactly what you're going to do. It doesn't mean that you're not well prepared if you're ready to shift it a little bit and adjust it. This happens with Scorsese, with the best directors in the world, always leave themselves a little bit open for those happy accidents that are going to happen.
Well, before we open it up to questions from our audience here, you know, one thing you said before the film again, you're married to an actress.
Yeah.
And hopefully you know his wife's work. I was about to say your actress, but your wife.
She's mine and only mine.
Elizabeth Perkins, it was Weeds and Big many years before that.
She was Wilma in the Flintstones?
Well, oh, right.
I'm a big fan.
She was a card-carrying Flintstone. For one thing that you had said before was talking about advice she gave you, you know, and you've worked with her also professionally.
Yeah, we worked together on 4 different projects, and the advice she gave me is well, you know,
The stuff you can, you know,
it's a selfish business, but you know, she thinks that without a great actor, you have nothing, which I believe, you know, because you can have all the bells and whistles and do a beautiful shot, and how many movies do we know that are just beautifully photographed and they're still a piece of shit? There's been many in history. So it's all, you know, on a basic level, it comes from having a story that's good, that's engaging, that is worth telling. And then the performers of it, the actors, and then documenting something great, you know, and then everything is gravy. The production design, the setting, all of the finessing that you do around it, but without a story to tell and without actors to portray it beautifully, you know. So she keeps reminding me how important actors are, and how difficult of a job it is, which it is, because they're like in a circus, you know, trapeze artists doing tricks without a net, because if they're very exposed, they're very raw, and you know, oftentimes they're doing very emotional things that are tough to get to unless the setting is right, and you know, and it's very hard to concentrate. You know, in a film set, there's 1,000 distractions. It's loud, there's people talking, there's this and that, and then it keeps going, and it's loud, and this and that. Okay, let's go. Roll camera, sound, yeah, ready, scene 35, take 5, hey. And then the actor has to be like perfectly in tune.
One tier.
And the thing, and you know, and it's just so unfair sometimes that we're unaware that all this nonsense is going on right before a moment where, you know, they're supposed to just check into the scene and nothing else. It's something that I never saw from that point of view until somebody pointed out, and it's true. And because of that, I think being respectful of the process of the actor as well. You know, everybody needs their moment to do their job. You know, the prop person who's fixing the tie right before we shoot, and the hair person who comes in and messes with actors' hairs, and you know, and is in front of the lens until the last second before. You know, so many times you just want, get the hell out of the lens. You know, get out. But you have to remember that everybody is there to do the best job that they can, and finessing that and being political about it and keeping you cool, respecting what everybody's job is, especially the actor, is it will just make you succeed.
So you cool with opening it up?
Yeah,
so we'll open up to you guys for questions. There's a microphone there. It is a friendly microphone. One thing I'll request, though, because he came nice enough to come here before the movie and talk a bit about choices he made, if you could also maybe ask some specific questions or specific thoughts about Horrible Bosses 2, since he did set us up for it. So the floor is yours.
Probably need to lift this up.
Or get shorter.
Yeah, and tell me who you are, by the way, and what you're into. Are you?
My name's Gabe. I'm in the BFA filmmaking program. I'm in my second year right now. So I came into it trying to do cinematography. Like, I was really like into it, and then like I took the classes now, and I'm in Cinematography 3 this semester.
Right.
And when I found out how much was involved with lighting involved with it as well, I was like, okay, all right. At first, when I came into it, I was like, cinematography is just camera. And then going into it, finding out that like, oh, gaffers, and then they become cinematographers, I was like, okay, I need to learn about that first. But what I was going to say is, first off, thank you for coming tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm curious, before you ask the question, what scares you the most about lighting? Because I'm sure other people share the lighting fear.
I guess for me, what the biggest fear is that like I tend to like depth, but I always, for some reason, tend to just do flat lighting. I'm like, oh, this looks good. And then it's always like flat. And I'm like, okay, all right, I need to add some depth. Because like shadows, like for me, I really like them. But then when I switch to a different angle, I'm like, okay, I have to recreate that exact shadow or else it's going to not cut well. So with lighting, I'm like, okay, that's the only reason for me. Because I really like feel when it comes to the actual framing, like I have like this eye for it. And like a few of my classmates have told me like when I do the actual framing, I get it. But when it comes to the lighting, I can't just be like, oh, you put this over here, you put that.
How long do you think it took me to figure out lighting?
I bet it took a while.
About 8 years.
Yeah.
Of being around a film set to figure out what the hell things are happening. And I'll tell you guys what helped me most of trying to figure out lighting was just observing real lighting. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That, you know, it's all there already for you to copy. It's like the answers are on the test. All you have to do is observe it and say, oh shit, here's a window. Light's gonna come in through a window. That would be a good direction for lighting. Right? It's like, duh, right? And then one day you're looking out the window and you see the sun's coming in and it hits the ground. and then the light comes from low to high, and it looks beautiful because it's indirect light. You know, it's not hard sunlight. And you see that, you know, when the sun hits somebody, it's really bright. But when it's hitting off the floor, it's mellow.
Like the bouncing of it.
Because it's bouncing, and it's bouncing all around the room, and all of a sudden it's really good lighting. So just by looking at it, you can figure out how to recreate that mood. If you're trying to shoot a little something that, you know, someone's by the window and the sun's coming in, then you already know how to light it. So like that, you know, I'm saying it's intimidating and it takes a long time to like control it, but you can start by doing your projects by seeing moonlight, see what moonlight looks like at nighttime, right? And it's kind of this harsh light, and it's kind of on the blue side to your eye. So you can go to Pier 1 and buy a China ball that's $8, you know, and put a blue bulb on it and put it on a stand, and it's going to look like moonlight on your piece. So it's intimidating until you start kind of dissecting it. But I totally understand it's intimidating, and I just don't want to discourage you, because if you love composition, and if you love movement of the camera, and if you love to like do a dolly into a close-up because you know that's going to put emphasis on it, or do a little pull out in a shot to say, okay, we're going into the next scene. If you're fascinated about that, don't let the lighting intimidate you. Okay, now ask your question.
So, first off, I was going to say, with what you said before the film about the scene, the first scene, I completely agree with you with the news part.
Yeah.
I kind of felt that it was different. And I've already seen this movie, so like going into it, now that I had your note, before you even said it, I had known the scene you were talking about.
Right.
And I do feel like even just like the colors within it were just kind of more grainy, and just like everything within that was a lot different than the comedic tone throughout the whole film.
Right.
So I was going to say with that, but what my main question was going to be about was with the scene when you're cutting and they're talking about the plan, how much of that was actually in-camera work versus editing? Because there's like the transitions as they're talking, and is that camera movements, dolly, or is that more of track motions?
So what we did is we storyboarded how we could do something that felt like it was always moving, and the idea was to make it look like cuts in the camera. Of course they're not. There's a lot of fun tricks, you know, and like the master of this is, if you saw the movie Birdman, you know, the way that Lubezki, Chivo, did continuous shots, and then he turned the corner, and then it felt like a continuous shot, but then you knew that there was a subtle cut in there in the darkness you cut. So we did, with the help of the visual effects, which you guys have computers, you can do this stuff. It's not that hard. Whether it's a soft line, most of them were soft dissolves with, you know, you take the scene and you break it in a place that's logical, either sideways, and you notice that the camera was moving a lot. It was important to keep that speed of movement the same, so that you went from one scene to the next scene moving at kind of the same speed. It's not that critical, but you know, you can't be doing this in one shot and then this in the other shot. It has to be, you know, similar. And the way to do that at the beginning when you're practicing is pan the camera around listening to music. If you listen to like mellow jazz, you know, and you're panning the camera, pretty soon you're panning to the beat, you know, the thing, da-da-da, you know, it just, and keep practicing this. Go back and forth and back and forth. Then when you operate the camera, you have that little song in your head, and somehow you come back to the same speed of the pan. So part of that was panning at the same speed. We storyboarded all the shots so that we had some standard visual effect transitions like that, where it's just simply, you know, you're panning from one thing, and then there's a cut in the middle, or there's a window, and then when you go up the window, you're into something else. When the car was going down, and we would go through floors, we just shot, you know, from up here to down here, and then we shot a little piece of wall going through too, and then that was superimposed on the
Yeah, I
move.
kind of saw that one.
You
with the
know,
cuts.
to go through the floors. There were some super cool transitions though that were sort of in camera, and one of them was where there's a puddle on the street, and we made it so it was red, so it was a red water. And you know when he does
when he
the thing
shoots
of the
and-
shooting,
yeah.
and then the screen turns red, and then you go from that reflection of red water in the street, there was a puddle, and then you tilt it up from that. That was very cool. And then we used flares for some of it, but all of that was worked out as all these scenes and how are we going to put them together, and it was storyboarded. And I recommend that you do that if you want to do a very cool transitional piece from one thing to another, that you storyboarded. I did another really pretty transition on a movie once, where I had an image, and then in the image there was a reflection of trees going through, and then the trees created this sort of space in the middle. So I remembered that, and with the use of the video tab, you know, I went back to that scene, and then for the transition to the next scene, I found something in the frame that was just a single person floating, and I placed them exactly in the place that I created space for, and you did a soft dissolve. So you can do that. You can split the frame and have something here and then do a dissolve where it almost, you know, the things thematically have something to do with each other. Or the place, you leave a place in one area of your frame where you know you're going to dissolve something into that, and it makes it flow better. So that was all by design.
Yeah, thank you. I just had one other quick question.
Yeah.
How much earlier did you sign on to this project? Like, how many weeks, months, like, in advance were you, like, confirmed as the person? the
About
cinematographer?
usually on a movie, it's 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
If it's a bigger movie, it's 4 weeks, and then you spend 8 hours a day, hopefully, working things out. With 50% of it is the nuts and bolts, technical stuff that you deal with, production, which you guys have to do the same. You know, if you're doing a little project, part of it, the organizational side of it, is super important, because the more prepared that you are, the better your shoot is going to go. And the more that you can try to anticipate problems for the shoot ahead of time, and that's why a good producer does that. They help you to try to anticipate things that can go wrong. So by the time that you get to the set and you're filming, you've thought about all these things, you've thought about the fact that at your level, most of the time, your sound gets wrecked because you're in a place where you can't really control sound. And then half the time your sound is shitty because, you couldn't control cars from going by, at the time that you're shooting. So you can be maybe more clever about it and say, okay, in between takes, we're going to have a PA pretending like they're handicapped crossing the street, and they're going to go very slowly with someone helping them, pretending like they're handicapped, and the cars can't go by, and your sound is good. I'm giving you tips, guys. Come on.
We can't say it, so it's got to come from him.
But it's stuff like this that you just, as a director, you just want. My goal as a cameraman is to give the director as much preparation, as much know-how, to give him more time to shoot on the set. That's the whole idea of all the prep, whether you have 4 weeks, which is never enough anyway, whether you have 3 days and you have a shoot to do, your preparation time is critical, because this is where you're not, it's not crazy and nobody's rushing you to finish the work. And, at your level, you don't have a producer saying, dude, it's costing me $150,000 to shoot today, so you better not drop any work for tomorrow because it's costing me another day to work tomorrow and we can't afford it. At your level, we're not going to get all the shots, we need to cut the piece, right? So think about it. The more organized that you can be in preparing it all, and to try to have an idea what your shots are, to try to anticipate problems, the things that could go wrong, you know, the more you can do that, the more time you'll have to shoot on a set. And the other big pointer I'm going to give you is when you're shooting your stuff and you think you have your scene, if you at all have a moment, do something completely different than what you thought you wanted to do. Just throw it completely like okay,
kinda.
here's a fun one, you know? It's like, I call it, here, let's do a fun one. You know, it has nothing to do with anything, that is totally from your gut, not to say something else, and you go for it and you say, okay, I think we have the scene. Now I'm going to try something completely off that may or may not work. And I guarantee you that 50% of the time, that's going to be your favorite thing you've done all day.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering all the questions.
Oh, you're welcome, man. You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Amari. Thanks for coming. I'm an MFA producer. And so just to kind of get a take, this is my first semester, so I'm learning a lot about all the different types of programs involved. But so what should producers be looking for? I mean, you know, I know you touched on like organizational habits and things like that, but what should we be looking for in like reels that we watch or conversations that we have with cinematographers when bringing them onto a project?
Let me ask you this: as a producer, as a person, what is your passion? What kind of movies do you want to make?
I really like dark dramas and things that touch on like mental health and things like that. So
Awesome.
that's what I want to get into, like my big time goal.
So I think you would probably, whatever you do, I think you would probably do a better job with something that you're passionate about, that you have a voice about, that you have an opinion about. So I would try to associate myself with either finding projects that are in something that's related to what you're really passionate about, and or if you can't find something, you know, adapt something, a story that you've heard about, or write your own. And I would work with something that you feel super strong about, because a really good producer, that's what they do, is they find a property or they're attached to something that's really important to them, that they feel that they have a strong vision for, and then they find partners to make it happen. So you either find people with money to help you make it, or you find a director, you know, who you think would be a really good partner of yours to make this project happen. And you put a group of people who's as passionate as you are to make something, and the better your project is, the better the people that you're going to attract. Because if you have good taste and if you're very passionate about something, chances are that that's going to rub off on somebody else, and somebody else is going to get excited to work with you on it. And then you, as a producer, then you help guide this project to fruition, and you try to find the parts and the people that, you know, will love it and will have passion for it as you do. And then it's kind of a magical thing that you're putting all the parts together to make something happen. And then oftentimes it takes its own inertia and the thing happens because of the passion you had for it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good luck.
Hello, Julio. My name's David. I was a graduate from the acting program.
Great.
And I have a question. You've obviously worked with tons of actors over the days, probably ones that you've loved and ones that you haven't loved.
Yes.
And my question to you is, what can an actor do to get your positive attention, and what shouldn't they do to get your negative attention?
That's a really good question.
And then we'll shut off the camera and ask for the names of the actors.
Exactly.
Everyone's sworn to secrecy.
No, you know what? It's hard to find. It's hard to find many actors who are just kind of purposely nasty. You know, I work with some difficult actors who are really good, and then you kind of understand. Like even Joe Pesci, wasn't an easy person to work with because he felt like he was doing something that was out of his zone. And he found it really, on Home Alone, he found it really hard not to cuss. And he kept saying, why do I have to say this shit, It's like, but
Macaulay Culkin's like shaking, please, sir, I'm sorry.
Right. But he actually ended up doing a fantastic job because he's a great actor, and he did sort of polish a turd in places. That's what you say when you're trying to make something out of nothing. And there were some of those things where he made it better. I tell you what, a cinematographer really appreciates from an actor is that the actor is aware of the process, that technically, a lot of acting is technical, and a lot of acting is natural to where you don't think about it. But something as simple, you'd be amazed at something as simple as hitting a mark, which is important because if you're standing in the right place and the light is set for you properly, the focus is set for you properly, everything is smoother when you kind of go where you're supposed to go, which, some actors don't pay too much attention to it, but instinctively they can do it without looking down right before they get to it, which some actors do, usually kids. But just knowing what the process is, knowing that after you rehearse a scene, it's going to take a cameraman, if they're fast, a half hour to finish lighting. So you're respectful of that, just like I'm respectful of your process. And then I'm going to do my best to rehearse with a second team, your stand-ins, to make sure that I don't make you stand on a mark while I'm messing around with lighting at the last minute, which is time that you should be acting. You should not be waiting there for me to finish lighting. There's a mutual respect there. So what we love is when you're aware that technically some things have to happen, that you need to hit your marks, you need to come prepared. It's sort of, you learn the hard way, I think, as an actor, because directors get really angry and everybody else. And then the biggest reason a crew hates actors is when the actor comes to the set unprepared and they don't know their lines. And everybody else has done their homework, and we've all done we've done our due diligence of preparing lighting and getting it all done. And then you show up, and unless, you're having a mental block that day because, a family member's dead or something, which is always understandable. But if you come not prepared and have trouble just getting through the scene, it's sort of frowned upon, not just from, my crew, but from everybody and a director. So you want to come prepared, you want to come ready. You also, like everybody else, you try to anticipate things that can go wrong, and you try to anticipate that a director may want to change the blocking, they may want to change the scene and the dialogue. I hate to say this, but oftentimes you get to the scene, you run in the rehearsal, and then, all these new lines come out, and it's really understandable that an actor wouldn't know what the lines are because we're writing it right now, and you have to take a breath and take your time and learn the lines, the new lines, and everybody's understanding of it. So when you do come prepared and you're a professional, and eventually you'll get more and more professional, you'll see that respect rises mutually, and I would recommend that. That you also, the more that you learn about everybody else's job will be helpful, so that that it takes time to light, that the boom man, and the cable guy is going to come over and mess with your pants right before the scene, and they're sticking a wire just by the unit there, and tying you up, and you're like, you have an intimate scene, and and then the makeup person is pulling, doing the thing and bothering your eye, and then the hair person is messing with the one hair, which is their sole reason for living is that the one hair is out of place, and you go, come on, man, but you have to, the more that you know of everybody's jobs and the more you can try to anticipate and say, hey, you want to wire me now because I want 5 minutes to myself before the scene. That's just a sign of somebody who's thought about it, who's put it together, and you'll be respected for it.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, great. Great answer. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
You have a great look, too, so you got a good shot.
Thank you. I'll take on that.
Tell your agent that.
Hi, my name is Jordan, and I'm in the MFA directing program. And my question is, you'd kind of mentioned how you'd worked with a few, like, first-time directors, I guess. And when working with them, what, in your experience, what were some of the things that you had to maybe covertly push them in, like, to help them get their vision out, like, with your experience in the work in the field?
Yeah, I feel a lot like a shrink, you know, when I work with new directors. If I choose to work with them, it's because I respect them, because I know that they have their hands on a great idea, or they, you know, oftentimes they're the writer of the story. They just don't know. They've never directed before, and they're looking for a partner to help them tell their story. And I would say, well, you'll become a better director if you really, really know your story. Even if you haven't directed something, the worst thing you could do is not have a point of view and not have strong opinions about the story. Because everybody who you work with is going to come expecting you to guide them. You know, the actors are going to want you to inspire them with your vision, and they're going to say, what do you want to do? And you're going to say, well, there's different ways a scene can go, but here's what I'd like to try. This feels to me like this moment, and rather than to tell people how to act, if you want to make great relationships as a director with an actor, is don't tell them how to do it or read the lines the way that you want them to read it, but give them the setting and give them the feeling of what this moment is representing, and then let them interpret that as an actor, because oftentimes they're going to bring something better to you than what you had in mind yourself. So I think, again, to be most prepared, to really, really know your story, because everybody's going to have 1,001 questions for you, which are already they're all gonna relate to the story that you want to tell. And everybody's gonna go off of the script. They're gonna read something and they're gonna have their own take on what they've read. But the director is a person that should inspire everybody and guide everybody towards the movie that you want to make. And you need to be able to verbalize that to your actors and say, you know, in words that they can understand. You have to say, look, I know we're shooting in the script, it reads like this, but what I really want to do is I want to tell a story about, you know, a person who's been hurt by this or hurt by that, and they're out to lunch, they can't deal, they're upset. You want to explain not only to your cinematographer, because that's more just the visual part of it, but especially to your actors. You want to explain the story that you're telling and what you're feeling and what's important to you in the story. If you can master those things, it doesn't matter that you don't have as much experience. You know, people will help you to get there. But what people don't have is the vision that you have for your story and the passion, and you need to practice, in fact, how to communicate that to them and how to make them as passionate as you are. And this is why, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio loves working with Iñárritu, because the guy is full on passionately devoted to his story, and he'll go to any ends to try to explain that to Leonardo DiCaprio. And this is why actors like that love to work with directors like that, because they get it. They feel your passion, and they feel the worst thing you can do as a director is not have a strong point of view. Don't direct if that's going to be what you do. Be an editor or something. And then, do cuts in an editing room and have a director, a guy with a passion, come in and say, well, this is shit. Change it. Change it, man. Change it like this. Oh, okay. If you want to be a director, have a strong point of view, have a clear point of view that you can convey to the people that you talk to, and your actors, your cinematographer, and even though you don't know exactly how to do it, people will help you. And they'll respect you if you have that point of view in your story.
Okay.
Does that help you?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Good luck.
So we are going to have to wrap in a second. I know each of us had like one last big question. I have to ask about Home Alone.
Yeah.
You mentioned Home Alone was your first feature as a cinematographer, right?
It was, yeah.
And first of all, how many guys here have seen Home Alone? I have to ask. So right there. I think for the camera's sake, that was like 98%. And then one person who's like, what the heck is Home Alone?
You're in for a treat.
Yeah. And the thing to me that I would love to hear a bit about is it's like a live action Roadrunner cartoon.
Perfect.
And for yourself as a first time full-on cinematographer, and I know you had shot like music videos and stuff before, and
in action, I'd done some action photography with a lot of stunts. I was comfortable.
So I guess that might even be the answer. Is like, how were you then able to sort of tackle this project, which really it's still one of the biggest comedies of all time? How were you able to then create this world that really unique world Home Alone's in, where an iron could hit a guy in the face and somehow it just be like Three Stooges level funny?
Yeah, man. It was one of those things where the director, Chris Columbus, it was one of his first films too. He had done Adventures in Babysitting and I think one other thing, and I had written a lot. And he was a young guy. He was late 20s. I was also late 20s, maybe 30. The studio introduced us because we were kind of young and kind of displaying really good work. I had been doing this major stunt sequences for this action movie at Warner Brothers, which I only got that gig because of a director who brought me in to do it. And then ironically, the movie went from Warner Brothers to Foxx right before we started shooting. But that's a whole other thing. That was just executives getting in a big fight, and John Hughes, who at the time was a really powerful director and eccentric writer, said, if you don't want to do what I want to do, I'm just going to go take the movie to another studio, and it happened. So anyway, but to make a long story short, I was scared shitless because I thought any day they're going to figure out that I haven't done a movie. It's like,
finally read the resume.
Yeah, but they're going to make one phone call.
They're going to come with a hook and go like, put in somebody who knows what they're doing.
You didn't shoot Lawrence of Arabia?
But it was a little kids movie, so it was, it was a small, at the time, like $13 million movie. And the vision of the director was that he wanted to do something that was all about the kid and the kid's world and his imagination. And he referenced the movie A Christmas Story, and he said, if we can do something that kind of feels like A Christmas Story, where you're really in with the kid, whatever we need to do, I want to do that. I'm a little worried about all the stunts, but I know that you're really good with stunts, so you can help me, to do all the stunt stuff. I'd like it to be in Chicago with snow, and it should feel kind of like a classic movie, kind of like A Christmas Story. And he says, and what the reason I think you're right for this job is because you're kind of green and you're kind of you were born in another country, and I think that you would kind of approach this like a rebel and do it sort of with no rules and try stuff. And I went, wow, I'm glad you got all that, because, I'm glad you think so. So we went off, and he had talked about, all these action sequences should be cartoony, like Rube Goldberg type cartoons. And we talked about how we could do that. And I tell you, I was so scared when we started the movie that I had you know, we would set up 2 cameras because with the kids, we always needed 2 angles. And then I was so scared, especially when we started doing some of the action stuff, that I wanted to get it. I wanted to make sure I'm not going to do a stunt and not get the stunt. So I had my chicken shit side had this little small camera. It was a 2C small camera, you know, the equivalent of what would now be, you know, your still camera, but with film, 200 feet of film. The whole thing was small with a wide angle lens. And we used to call that bonus cam. And because I was so scared and I thought, shit, I better have something that has the whole thing in one shot. I'm going to plop it down here where it wasn't in the boom shot, where it was still in the frame. And so I'd just plop it there and run it. So pretty soon, cool things were happening with this third camera that we used to call bonus cam. We'd have things like, you know, it was a wide angle lens, it was a 14, so you'd have Joe Pesci falling and then falling right next to the wide angle lens. And when we were watching dailies and then the couple of little shots would come up from the bonus cam, that shot, and then at one point the only place I could put it was to tie it to a stick and put it like this, you know, just wide and stupid. You know, and Pesci would fall back and he'd be looking up at it. And bonus cam was really funny and fun. And so pretty soon bonus cam became more and more important. This accidental camera that was just me out of fear started to develop like a style that was, oh wow, we like. And then it was like, where are we gonna put it? We got excited. Where's bonus cam going? Where are we gonna put it? It's gonna be fun. It doesn't matter. It's just, you know, a grab shot. So let's put it somewhere. Oh, let's tie a string to it and let's throw it down the chute. You know, let's pretend like it's the iron hitting the guy in the face. So we throw the bonus cam down. You know, we pull it on a string. You know, we would put it like on this smooth material and, you know, pull it and do like a little wide, and then, you know, at the end of it, there'd be somebody's face there. So bonus cam helped us develop the style that we knew nothing about, which was wide and close and kind of distorted and kind of fun. And then we kept doing more stuff with it. We threw it down on a rope, you know, and had it be like the paint cans.
Oh, right, when the swing,
you know, coming right to the thing. You know, we put it right next to the spider because, you know, who cares? It's bonus cam. You know, so you put it in the spider's crawling right in front of the lens. And so we accidentally stumbled onto something that was seemingly by design. And then, you know, like everything else, once you see a couple of great accidents happen, then you want to recreate those accidents. And then we thought more about, oh, cool, we can put bonus cam here as our third camera.
And that came out of being, as you put it, chicken shit.
Yeah,
But it also came out of dailies,
my
too.
Chicken shit angle.
But it talks about how dailies are important, too, right? Because if you guys hadn't been watching this stuff and seeing it together, then it doesn't grow into something.
That's the biggest shame of the digital revolution, that now, you know, people watch dailies in their iPads, and it's super different than you know, a room full of people, everyone who tried so hard to do the best work that they could, to sit in a dark room and project their work from the day or the day before, and you know, so you see in detail the things that we can improve or the things that were really good. You know, at dailies, it helped us discover that, and it's a shame that we don't do that anymore. Some productions do. I worked recently with Frank Coraci, who has to watch dailies. We did this movie, Blended, and we were in South Africa, and we were watching dailies at the hotel. We set up a little projection room like this, and it informs you, and it's different than watching it on this tiny screen. When it doesn't make sense that if you're going to do something that's going to project on a bigger screen, and that's where you want to make your impact, that you don't at least check it, at least at the beginning, to establish things, to establish makeup, to establish angles, to see all the details, the colors fully. It doesn't make sense not to see it on a big screen, at least at the beginning.
And seeing it with an audience too, even if it's just the keys.
Yeah, it was. I always saw it as our reward, for working so hard.
Yeah.
It's exciting. We used to play music and have a glass of wine and enjoy our work. So Home Alone is still my favorite film, and it mainly is because it had heart and we were passionate about it, and we approached it with a lot of sort of innocence and heart and passion, and I think it translates to the work you do.
I mean, you could see the movie's over 25 years old now, and and some of you guys are under 25, and everyone here still has seen that film. I know you had one more question too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, talking about the digital revolution, I was going to kind of follow up on that. Our job used to be a little bit more mystical in a way, right? We've got a light meter and no one else is going to know what it looks like. Yeah. So, with Video Village, that's kind of gone away, right?
Yeah.
For these guys who are starting out now, how do you think that changes the job, or what advice would you give them kind of in that climate?
Well, it does give a lot more people opinions about it because everybody's there, and everybody has to justify their existence, and if you're sitting, and if you're a co-producer, executive producer, everybody's there, and hoping to contribute. So it just makes you want to even more so have a strong opinion, follow your heart, because you're going to have three other, chefs in the kitchen coming in to say, if I told you how many times somebody comes to me and says, Julio, we're doing a comedy. Do you think we have enough light? If I could have $10 for every time I heard that, I'd have a lot of money. And then you go, yeah, there's plenty of light. You see everything. You see the joke, but it's still grounded and it's still pretty and rich and there's still good visuals. There's nothing you can do except for forget all that. I call Video Village the country club, and I forget the country club. I forget all the other guests that I don't want to be friends with, and I deal with the director. I deal with the things we talked about. I try to deal with the actors, and I try to do my best to tell the best story that I can and use, my tools of trying to set a mood with lighting, trying to do compositions that are strong, that help the story, and move the camera in ways that it helps to drive the story forward. I try to stick to my job and my thing. And hopefully, good collaborations with a director who shares, all the best films have great relationships and respect between director and cameraman. So I hope that as you're doing your projects, you get to team up with people who share your passion and who has mutual respect, like you do, and hopefully those will be the relationships that you will continue. And when one of you guys makes it, the other one calls the other person and say, I got a break. You helped me as we were getting started. Let's do this. It's going to be fun.
Well, I feel like that's as good a note to end on as I can imagine, guys. If we could do a round of applause for Julio Macat, who is